Welcome to this visual journey into absolute reality. This opening slide sets the tone for a practical exploration of a spiritual experience, moving beyond the idea of bliss as a special state and towards something quieter, deeper, and more natural. This slide introduces a key tension in a spiritual life. We often reach for elevated experiences, but even those moments can become a distraction. The question is not how to hold on to bliss, but where we go once we see that bliss itself is still part of experience. Here, the framework becomes more precise. The experiencer and the experienced are shown as two sides of one temporary thought, which means the sense of a separate self is not as fixed as it seems. Once that thought fades, the division disappears too. This slide explains that all experiences, whether physical pleasure or spiritual ecstasy, still belong to the body and mind. They may differ in quality, but both are temporary and both remain within the limits of biology. The point is not to reject them, but to see their nature clearly. The piano key loop illustrates how struggle continues itself. A thought appears on its own, but when we try to suppress it or push it away, we end up pressing the same key again. In that effort, the thought gets renewed rather than resolved. The story of the king, the medicine, and the monkey makes the same point in a memorable way. The moment we try to control the mind through force, contradiction is born, and the very object we resist becomes stronger. The lesson is that inner conflict is often created by the attempt to manage thought. This slide shows the paradox of effort. The more we struggle for control, the more consciousness becomes entangled in itself. By contrast, a healthy kind of non-interference allows thoughts to rise and fall naturally. And that is where the possibility of samadhi begins to appear. Here we see two modes of knowing. Focused consciousness narrows in on one object, while unfocused consciousness rests in open awareness without clinging. The image suggests that true stillness is not dullness, but a steady sensitivity that remains alive without strain. This table brings the whole comparison into one view. Ordinary joy and suffering are driven by pursuit and avoidance. Yogic bliss depends on effort and concentration. But Sahaja Samadhi is presented as effortless, balanced, and naturally sustained. It is not a peak experience, but a stable way of being. The boundary diagram shows how duality is created and maintained by the intellect. We imagine an inside and an outside, a self and the world, but oneness does not require forcing the two together. It simply means the artificial line is no longer believed in. This slide ties the framework together. Sat is the silent base of being, Chit is the movement of awareness and intellect, and together they point to a life without self-contradiction. Spirituality here is not about rejecting experience, but allowing it to unfold on the basis of stillness. The final slide describes the end of the search. What seems like an overwhelming spiritual journey may eventually reveal itself as empty hands and a return home. Sat Darshan is not another dramatic event, it is the relief of no longer seeking, where one simply is.